Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, June the 15th, 2026. Today, or perhaps last night if you're in the Americas, there's a new moon. And this new moon is in Gemini, and it's an event which I need to talk about. And this new moon is going to affect all of us, and I will be, going through the 12 signs as I always do, and I will, in the process of describing the 12 signs, I will be looking at how the new moon is going to impact all 12. And additionally, in this video, I'm going to look at the overall picture for today astrologically. So here it is. Here is a chart set for noon today, Monday, June the 15th, 2026. And by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe if appropriate. So as far as this chart is concerned, you can see that at noon New York time on Monday, June the 15th, today, there is the moon. Well, the moon is in Cancer. Moon is at 2 degrees Cancer. So it's just moving away from the sun. And this tells us, earlier in the day there was a new moon. The new moon was at 3:54 a.m. London time, which would of course be last night in the Americas. But okay, just because the new moon was last night, if you're watching this from America, doesn't mean to say that it's got nothing to do with today. It continues to have an impact today. I mean, new moons can last a couple of weeks. A big new moon can last a month and longer. So it is a new moon. It is a new moon day, and the moon is moving from being waning to waxing. New lunar cycle, new beginning. It's perhaps a time when we can get things off the ground. Now, this new moon does develop, and you can see that by noon, New York time, the moon is at 2 degrees 24 Cancer. So the moon's gone into Cancer. So very early in the day in the Americas, moon's changed sign, gone into Cancer. If you're in Europe, early afternoon, Europe, Middle East, Africa, early afternoon. Yeah, I think if you're in Jerusalem, for example, the moon will change sign at 3:14 p.m. This afternoon. So that's always interesting when you've got these late degree new moons. You think it's a Gemini event, and then it turns into, or you think it's an event in one sign, and then it switches to the next sign, and when the moon goes into Cancer, of course, what that means is that the sun and the moon are in different signs. Now, new moons, they sound positive, but every new moon, in a way, is negative because the moon is burnt up by the sun, and so when the moon moves into Cancer, it has some room to breathe, and so that means that we start to be able to really become sort of more objective about what's going on, and we can start to perceive the future and understand perhaps where the new cycle is going. And aside from the new moon, okay, I should say I'm going to come back to the new moon, but I just want to talk about the other stuff going on at the same time as the new moon. And there are a few sort of aspects of note. I mean, the main aspect of note is actually a quintile between Venus and Mars. So Venus and Mars are exactly 72 degrees apart. There is Mars and there is Venus, and so you can kind of see by eye that it's 72 degrees apart. So it's 20 degrees Taurus. What's 60 degrees on from that would be 20 degrees Cancer. Then you add the 12 and that takes you to 72. So quintile between Venus and Mars. So when you're talking about quintile aspects, you're talking about willpower. It's the kind of effect you are trying to create. There's something you want, and so you want to make it happen. And when you're talking about Venus and Mars, those two planets together, are very much connected with relationships. It's not the only thing they're connected with, but as a pair, one sees them about, as the male and the female, and so you're trying to bring two principles together, and because it's a quintile, it is through our willpower. It's what we're trying to build, and so for some of us, this Venus quintile Mars might be about trying to build a relationship of whatever nature, trying to get on with someone. It's not necessarily spontaneous. We may just have to go through a checklist, ask ourselves, who are we dealing with? What kind of person is this? We've perhaps identified a reason why we want to get close to this person, maybe for a short-term reason, maybe something longer term, and so we act accordingly. We work out that if we behave in a particular way, then we have a good chance of impressing this person. Okay, maybe we don't have to impress them, but we're just trying to get on with them. And with Venus quintile Mars, it may say something about existing relationships. So if, for example, you've fallen out with someone, or you feel that there's a certain distance between yourself and another person, and you also feel that you want to get closer, then this Venus quintile Mars perhaps allows you to go through the steps. You decide what needs to be done. Perhaps it's a person you know very well. You know what they want to hear. You know what they don't want to hear. You know what behavior they appreciate. So if you need to get on with someone, even if you've fallen out with them, then, or you feel a relationship is strained, I think you can actually really sort of make it happen. But it does require some effort, and with this Venus quintile Mars, it's not an aspect that is especially spontaneous, and you perhaps have to go through something. And when we think about Venus, by the way, Venus is it's actually making a square to the Mars Saturn midpoint, and so as Venus moves through the very beginning of Leo. I did a video about this when I did a video for the weekend. I just mentioned that the first impressions of Venus in Leo might not be very good. Everything just might be difficult, and we might feel that things aren't going anywhere, but it's just difficult to get through to people because perhaps of Venus being square the Mars Saturn midpoint. But it's worth persisting, and if we can persist, probably by tomorrow, by the day after, things are going to be a lot easier. So that's the picture for today, set for noon New York time. Let's quickly look at the picture if we set it for Sydney, Australia, as a representative of Australia and New Zealand and East Asia. So noon in Sydney, you can see that the new moon is exact. Pretty close to being exact. And so the power of that new moon, in the central part of the day, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, is going to perhaps be very clear and very obvious, and it might really feel that it is a time of a new beginning. But at times of new beginnings, it's not a time where you can actually start anything. I know that sounds a bit of a contradiction, but it's because the moon and the sun and the moon are in the same place. The moon is combust, and it will take time before you start to get some objectivity, when the moon moves into Cancer. And so you can see with the moon at 23 degrees Gemini, if you're in Australia or New Zealand, the moon is not going to go into Cancer until really tomorrow. Okay, I don't know. There may be somewhere where it goes into Cancer, very late in the day if you're in Australia or New Zealand. But you should regard that moon in Cancer, the objectivity of that moon in Cancer, as not really being about today, as being more about tomorrow, Tuesday. And then there is the heliocentric picture. Don't forget, I'm about to go into detail about the new moon, but let's just go through the heliocentric picture first. So here it is, and heliocentrically we have got an exact Mars-Chiron conjunction. So Mars and Chiron are exactly there. Rather, that conjunction is exact. So Mars conjunct Chiron. We could see Mars conjunct Chiron. There are things that some people could get angry about. Angry if things are not being done right. If someone is being treated unfairly. And we want fairness. That is a way in which the Mars-Chiron conjunction could be working. And it could be that people around the world are looking at what their governments are doing, what's happening in their country, and they think, no, this is not fair. This is not the way it should be. And perhaps they want to do something differently. Perhaps they want to take risks. That's certainly a way in which Mars-Chiron could work. And in general, with Mars conjunct Chiron, you think about it. Mars is how one uses one's energy, and how one asserts oneself. One wants to be different. One wants to stand out as being different. Okay, it may not be us, but perhaps if you look at what's happening in the world, what people are doing, are people on the streets, whatever they're doing, what is going through their mind? They're not happy. And at some level, they do want to stand out. So that is a way in which the Mars-Chiron conjunction could be working. And additionally, we have a T-square, because we've got Jupiter opposition Pluto heliocentrically. Okay, it's not exact, but Jupiter is moving towards that opposition to Pluto. So when you've got Jupiter opposition Pluto, we've got this geocentrically as well over the summer. When Jupiter moves into Leo, it will start moving towards an opposition to Pluto. People are thinking, well, things should be better. Things aren't good enough. We want things to be better. We expect them to be better. And Mercury is triggering the whole thing. Mercury square Jupiter, Mercury square Pluto. People are thinking about their conditions, about the society in which they're living, and they want to do the best they can, but what if they are prevented from doing the best they can? Well, people are going to get angry, and they might want to just push things maybe much harder. And so that's a heliocentric picture. So there is actually quite a lot going on. We've got that Mars-Chiron conjunction plus that Mercury-Mars-Jupiter T-square. So, the Jupiter-Pluto-Mercury T-square. So we've got that. And so there is a sense in which people are just not happy with the situation and the overall situation. And they might feel that they have to do something about it. So now I want to look at the new moon. So here is the new moon, the moment of the full moon. It's at 24 degrees and 3 minutes Gemini, and it's at 3:54 a.m. London time. So that means it's going to be. It was last night, late on Monday in the Americas. It will be. Still early morning, Europe, Africa, Middle East, later in the day, around lunchtime, if you're in Australia or New Zealand. So it's the end of a lunar cycle, beginning of a new cycle, and it's in Gemini, so there is a real Gemini feel to today. Gemini is about it's about thought. Perhaps it's about talking. We perhaps have ideas, and we're thinking about what we might be able to do. But there is a lot of talking there, and it could be that we feel that we get a new idea, or that we've had an idea kind of floating around for the last few weeks, and with the new moon, it kind of moves to the next stage. It becomes more concrete. It becomes almost tangible. I mean, almost tangible, not completely tangible. And certainly that might be a way in which this new moon works. So that's how we might be feeling about it. And so what specifically is this new moon about? What aspects does this new moon have? Well, it is opposition true black moon Lilith. I mean, it's not exactly opposition true black moon Lilith, but you can see that true black moon Lilith is at 21 degrees Sagittarius, and so you could say that there is a feeling that something needs to be dealt with. The new moon would like to be open and would like to, say whatever is on its mind. But true black moon Lilith is maybe saying, you got to hold something back. You don't want to reveal everything. True black moon Lilith, things taking place in the dark recesses of our unconscious, that we don't have full ownership of. Maybe we think it's not our problem. We think it's someone else's problem. I mean, with true black moon Lilith, there's just always that problem. In Sagittarius, there's almost a sense of projection. The new moon in Gemini, that's something that's perhaps very conscious, and we're perhaps talking about stuff in a very easygoing way, nothing too serious. But in the background, there's something darker which is sort of influencing what we say, but we're not fully aware of that influence. So we might be trying to keep a lid on something that we're not fully comfortable with, but it's still there. And so when you listen to people talk, what they say could be very reasonable. But ask yourself, what is their motivation? What is their real motivation? And there might be an unconscious motivation, which the speaker is not even aware of. They might be partially aware of. I mean, it could be just straight deviousness. That is certainly a way in which the new moon opposition, true black moon Lilith, could be working. So we can look at this new moon in terms of the 90-degree dial, and so with the 90-degree dial, let's just see what it looks like. Okay, so this gives us an idea of the structure of the new moon. So there is the new moon. There's a conjunction between the sun and the moon. There it is. And so, the question is, what midpoints is the new moon on? And, one midpoint that it is on the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. You can see that the Mars-Jupiter midpoint is at 23 degrees 29 Gemini. And that's important because it's a direct midpoint. So just to show you what I mean, there is Mars, there is Jupiter. And you can then see that if Mars is at 20 degrees Taurus and Jupiter is at 26 degrees Cancer, then the midpoint is going to be, 23, 24 Sagittarius, 23, 24 Gemini. So that really says something about this new moon and what it's about. So if you think about, if you think about what Mars-Jupiter is, when you put those two planets together, you think about energy, wanting to do a lot of things, being active, perhaps overactive. And, there is a certain valence to Mars and Jupiter when you put them together. I mean, I don't think it's always an easy combination. And so that's certainly a way in which we can see Mars and Jupiter. And there is, where's Mars gone? Where has Mars and Jupiter gone? You see, there's Mars and there's Jupiter. And, we can see that the sun and the moon are on it. And additionally, if we're talking about direct midpoints, this new moon is on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. So Uranus-Hades, we could say Uranus-Hades is about sudden acts of unpleasantness, sudden criminal acts, sudden acts of mischief, evil, and so forth. Let's see what Vitta says. It's always interesting and perhaps exciting to see how Vitta views it. But I mean, I don't think we should regard Alfred Vitta's rules for planetary pictures in a biblical way. We should not regard it as biblical, but it just gives us perhaps a view. And so, looking at what Vitta says about the Uranus-Hades principle. You see, he says Uranus-Hades is a principle. He's quite negative about Uranus-Hades. Distinctly marked loathsomeness or disgust, sudden mean acts, exciting damages, accident, murder, war atrocities. Well, yeah. So when you look at Hades and you look at war atrocities, you have to remember that Alfred Vitta, he did fight in the First World War, and the First World, he saw the damage that the First World War did to his society, did to Germany, as well as Europe, and of course, the meanings of Hades and the other hypothetical planets were being developed immediately after the First World War, and so they do colour his interpretations, but still, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Hades is quite a negative force. It's about decay, it's about crime, and you put it together with Uranus, and you just do get the idea of something bad suddenly happening. And, he says of Sun on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. Of course, Sun is on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. He says, days on which danger lurks. The man who is suddenly exposed to influences which are injurious to health. Why does he say the man? Because it is Sun on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. So the Sun is a male planet. Of course, with the moon, you can say that for a woman as well, because the moon is a female planet. So, in fact, going moon on Uranus-Hades midpoint, the hour of the murder, widespread dying, mean deeds of women, a grave ending, long agony, or assassination of a woman. So this new moon, from a Vitta's perspective, with Uranus, with the new moon on the direct Uranus-Hades midpoint, and when you throw the Mars-Jupiter conjunction there as well, it does seem rather grim. Of course, I am absolutely aware that all of this is sort of hyperbolic, but there is potentially a great sense of exaggeration here, and we don't want. I mean, I'm not trying to scare everyone. Of course, the problem with astrology, you can take all of the you can take all of these different points, Hades and Uranus and whatever. And if you're looking for an unpleasant and violent interpretation of something, well, you can always find something to support your argument. In the same way, if you want to be positive and happy about a new moon, yeah, you can find a way of doing it. And it is a problem. I mean, I have to be honest about that. But I do. We do know that right now things are difficult in the world. Certainly, we're not living on a particularly stable planet. So yeah, I mean, I think that overall it is. It is quite a tense new moon, and it's also on the Saturn-Uranus midpoint, I think. Yeah, so so it's not just on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. It's also on the Saturn-Uranus midpoint. So Saturn and Hades are quite close to making a hard aspect, and sort of Uranus puts it all together. So I think I think it is quite a difficult full moon. I think it's not easy, and there might also be a certain sense of uncertainty with this. Sorry, did I say full moon? Did I say a full moon? Did I mean a full moon? No, I meant a new moon. So if we look at the Aries point, let's look at the Aries point. The Aries is the global point, and what we see with the global point is we see, with the Aries point, is that here's the new moon. On the other side of the new moon is Neptune. So from a global perspective, this new moon is kind of linked with Neptune. And okay, Neptune, you could say, well, that's a universal planet of oil, so yeah, we have to still worry about oil and the oil price. Although, have we been assured that the war is over in Iran? I don't know. It's really difficult. It's difficult to keep track of it. It's driving everyone crazy. But you need to think about the Straits of Hormuz and so forth. But Neptune also, is about general confusion. So those are a few thoughts about this new moon. I wanted to also look at the new moon from the perspective of astrocartography now. So let's now do a astromap of the new moon. So I'm going to do an astromap for Europe and to an extent the Middle East. So these are all the places where this new moon is. You see this yellow line here? This is, these are all the places where the new moon, where the new moon is on the ascendant. So it okay. There's was that the Faroe Islands? But anyway, we don't. So this goes down. It goes through Berlin. So the new moon is on the ascendant, going through Berlin, going through looks like Bratislava, Budapest. So I don't know, Prague. So if you've got those countries, you could say that this new moon may affect those capitals. Berlin, Budapest, maybe Belgrade, Bratislava. A new moon might be a new beginning, new moon in Gemini, but it's, of course, as we know, it's a new moon on the Hades-Uranus midpoint, so there might be a certain disruptiveness about this new moon, but I think it's certainly something we need to think about. But as you know, if you've been watching my videos for long enough, you'll know that I put up these astrocartography charts. They don't always work. Astrocartography can be quite hit and miss. So other things about this chart. Here's the Jupiter line, all the places which, there's the Mercury line, all the places that have Mercury on the ascendant. You can see it goes through Moscow, you can see that. So that might say something about, people's experience in Moscow. Mercury on the ascendant. I don't know if that's really going to have a huge impact. But let's just look at some relocated charts. So, for example, here is the chart for Berlin. So Berlin at the exact time of a new moon, the ascendant is at 24 degrees 57 Gemini. So yeah, the new moon really is on the ascendant in Berlin, and so that might say something about, I don't know, what's going on in Germany, the government, perhaps the government trying to assert itself. I know that the government is not popular in Germany, but it might try to be doing something, trying to get something off the ground. If you're in Germany, that might make sort of more sense to you. And then here's the new moon set for Moscow. So if we set the new moon for Moscow, we see Mercury. We see sort of Mercury-Jupiter conjunction, on the ascendant. So that might say something about what's going on in Russia. It looks kind of positive, perhaps. Maybe there's good news. I mean, having Jupiter quite close to the ascendant in terms of what's going on in Russia. So from a perspective of the Russian government, I don't know whether that could be the economy, but the way the war's going. So that's it. Again, it's astrocartography. I do regard astrocartography as a hit and miss technique. And then going back to the new moon chart that I was just showing you, and it's this is set for London. And the thing about the new moon chart set for London is that Pluto is on the midheaven, and we know in the UK that things are difficult. It's not just the fact we've had the riots in Belfast, we had the stabbing in Belfast, we have got a by-election coming up in Macclesfield. Is that Macclesfield? Is that right? And the results are important. It seems to be likely, according to the polls and betting markets, that this Labour politician Andy Burnham is going to get elected as Member of Parliament, and that could have a huge impact on the British government, because it seems very likely that he's going to stand against Keir Starmer. So this could be the beginning of the end of Keir Starmer as British Prime Minister. I mean, even if Andy Burnham loses, which I don't think he will, I think the problem that the right in Britain has is that it's split three ways. You've got the Tories, you've got Reform, you've got Restore, and this might continue. We might have sort of permanent government of the left in the UK unless the right manage to find some way of working together. But anyway, Pluto's on the midheaven, and so from a governmental perspective, having Pluto on the midheaven, can be tough, and it can say something about the kind of changes that are about to be unleashed on Britain in the wake of this new moon, and in the wake of the Macclesfield by-election. And as far as people impacted by this new moon, I couldn't find that many people impacted. Xi, he's the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. He's got a birthday. Well, in fact, happy birthday, Xi. I hope he has a great birthday. It's interesting that he's born the day after Donald Trump's. His birthday is June the 14th. Xi's birthday is 1953. So that means he is going to be 73. So happy birthday to Xi. He has a new moon at the time of his birthday. So this might mean that. Might mean a change for him, might mean a change for China. He might want to initiate something new, because I don't have a time of birth for Xi. I mean, it isn't necessarily going to be fortunate, him having a new moon on his birthday. I mean, we know that this new moon is on the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. It's also on the Uranus-Hades midpoint. So, it might encourage him to do something, take some action, which might be extreme. I think he might feel he has to, initiate something. And someone else, a blast from the past, who's impacted by this new moon is Kamala. And Kamala is, if you look at, I don't know, polls. I mean, she's. I think she's still the favourite to be the candidate for the Democrats in 2028. I just cannot see that being a good idea. But still, Kamala has got North Node rising, and that North Node rising, it's good. Her North Node rising. I mean, North Node works well in Gemini, and her North Node in Gemini. That's Western. She's got the North Node rising in Gemini in her Eastern chart as well. So Kamala has got Gemini rising East and West. She's got North Node in Gemini East and West, and North Node works well in Gemini. It's a great North Node, and perhaps it explains how she has managed to be so successful, because she really doesn't strike me as being particularly impressive, but she got to be vice president. She got to be she got to be the candidate for the presidency in 2024, and so the new moon is on her ascendant, and so it could be that this new moon on her ascendant really helps her to sort of crystallize her campaign to be the next the next president. Maybe she really is looking at 2028, and so the new moon would be a great time to really be able to up the pace of her political whatever her political agenda is. I think a lot of people in the Democrat Party feel there's unfinished business here, that she should have been elected president. I think I just don't think it would be wise. I probably need to look at Kamala Harris's chart again in some detail. I know that things were bad in 2024 when I predicted that Trump was going to win in 2024. I mainly did that on the basis of Kamala's chart rather than his chart. So that's something I perhaps need to look at sooner rather than later. But I think the new moon, at least in a short term for Kamala, is probably positive, because it does perhaps allow her to initiate something new. We know that she's not running to be governor of California, so maybe she really is thinking about the presidency. So it'll be interesting to see what she's doing, over the next month. Maybe there are going to be some announcements. She needs to be looked at. I tried to look at what was going on in her life at the moment, and as far as I could see, the only thing she was doing was visiting a gay bar in California, and there was some press coverage of that. So that's all I could see. So anyway, she's perhaps someone we need to keep paying attention to. So now I want to turn to the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Monday, June the 15th, 2026. Aries. It's always a good idea to track Mars, particularly if one is talking about Aries, because Mars is your ruler, and you can see that Mars is at 20 degrees Taurus. So 20 degrees Taurus, what does that mean? That means that Mars is 2/3 of the way through the sign of Taurus. That means that Mars is moving into the third decanate of Taurus, and this third decanate is ruled by Saturn. Now, you might think that sounds a bit difficult. Saturn has a rather bad reputation, doesn't it? So you think that when Mars rules and Mars starts to go into a Saturn-ruled decanate, that there might be issues. Things might be slower. Things might be more difficult. And certainly that could be the case, but it kind of depends on your approach. I think with Mars moving into the last decanate of Taurus, this certainly allows you to be sort of more responsible than usual. Well, in fact, recently, Aries, you have been pretty responsible, and I think right now you can be even more responsible. You really understand what needs to be done, and I think you have a good relationship to authority. You understand authority. You understand regulation, rules, laws. You know what can be done. You're quite good at telling other people what to do. If you need to provide warnings, I think that you come over as being, pretty credible. Now, this isn't sort of standard Aries fare. We think about Aries as being quite a youthful sign, being quite spontaneous, always looking for the action, and having to worry about the small print, what you can and cannot do, might not seem to be great. But there's a time and a place for everything. And Mars is not going to be in Taurus for very much longer. At the end of the month it moves into Gemini, so that is certainly something to look forward to. But right now I think that you're in a position where you really can be in control. And we also have a quintile between Venus and Mars. So Venus quintile Mars. Venus and Mars are 72 degrees apart. And, this means that you are able to create the right impression. That's what quintiles are about. You have an idea about how you'd like to be, perhaps what you'd like to look like, and how you want to be perceived. And so Venus quintile Mars can be about creating that impression. It's nothing particularly spontaneous, but I know that people talk about spontaneity. Everything's got to be spontaneous. But we live in quite a contrived world. There is very often an emphasis on style over substance, and if you make an effort to adopt the right style, then I really think that you can be quite effective. Venus in Leo, quintile Mars in Taurus. It's an attractive combination. It's an attractive pairing, but it's the kind of attraction that you consciously work on. It's not anything particularly natural. I mean, okay, you can be naturally attractive, but Venus quintile Mars is perhaps about boosting your attractiveness through your own efforts and through your own machinations. So it's kind of up to you whether you want to utilize it. And there's another way of looking at Venus quintile Mars, in terms of relationships and how you get on with people. It's not about getting on with people in a necessarily very spontaneous way. I mean, that is possible, but if you want to find new connections with another person, it's perhaps a question of just thinking it through. What actually needs to be done. Get an idea of the kind of person you're dealing with, and then work it out and work out what they want to hear, what they want to see, what they're looking for. So that's how the Venus quintile Mars might be working. Now, we do have a new moon today. Okay, new moon might be yesterday if you're in the Americas, late yesterday. So the new moon is going to affect us all. It doesn't matter what our sign is. And this new moon is in Gemini, and so with a new moon in Gemini, it might be that you start to see new things. Perhaps information comes your way which you hadn't really thought about. You didn't realize something. And, perhaps you ask a few questions, you do a bit of research, and the information turns up, and it might create some changes. It's not like it's going to completely overthrow things, like you've got to, start all over again. But, when you realize the truth of the matter, you see a couple of facts, and, that does create a change. And so it might say something about, how you're thinking about, say, the next fortnight, maybe between now and the full moon. A couple of weeks we have got a full moon. That full moon will be in Capricorn, actually, and I'll be talking about that full moon when the time arrives. But you shouldn't feel right now that you need to be absolutely dead set on a particular course of action, because information might turn up which does change maybe everything, or certainly says something about how your approach is going to shift. And this new moon is kind of a bit double-bodied. I mean, okay, it's double-bodied because it's in Gemini. It's also double-bodied because it kind of changes signs. So this new moon, it starts in Gemini, 24 degrees Gemini, but then the moon changes sign and it moves into Cancer. And so maybe as you become aware of the facts, you then feel that you've got to adjust your approach, and in particular, you've got to do something to make things more settled. You perhaps realize where you might be vulnerable in a gentle way. There's no need to panic, but you become aware of your vulnerabilities, and as the moon moves into Cancer, you start having the opportunity to put yourself on more secure ground. Taurus. Mars continues its movement through your sign, and I think it's a good opportunity with Mars moving through Taurus for you to assert yourself. You can do this while Mars is here. Of course, at the end of June, Mars will move out of Taurus into Gemini, but right now it's moving through the last decanate of Taurus. It's just, what is it? 20 degrees and 32 minutes at noon New York time. And so that last decanate of Taurus, it's ruled by Saturn. And with Mars moving into a decanate ruled by Saturn, it perhaps gives you an increasing, seriousness. It's not just you. I think quite a lot of other people have been feeling more serious. I was just talking to Aries, and I was kind of suggesting that, Aries might at some level be becoming a little more serious, with Mars changing decanate, and I think that affects you as well. And perhaps in terms of how you are asserting yourself, you're thinking about, well, what actually are you trying to achieve? What concrete goals are you actually thinking about? And that's certainly worth thinking about. You really have to direct yourself to something concrete. And we may be talking about the material world. And of course, there is a new moon. The new moon is in Gemini. So with a new moon in Gemini, it is a new beginning. It's a new beginning for everyone. Now, as far as you are concerned, I think your first impulse is to see this new moon as being about what you have and what you don't have. It could indeed have a financial dimension. So you start to think about perhaps money in the bank, how much you're being paid, how much money you have available to you, and you might be thinking, well, it's time to make a change. Even if you're not thinking like that, maybe you should be thinking like that. If you want to start something new, of a financial nature, with this new moon, then I think you can. I'm not, by the way, advocating any particular actions. I'm not saying you should. I'm not here to give financial advice, but it just might be something that is starting to develop. But this moon, it is quite changeable. I mean, the moon, you have this new moon in Gemini, and then the moon moves on, and it moves into Cancer. So moon in Cancer for you, Taurus. That's great. I mean, it's a good place for the moon, and remember, the moon has a special relationship with Taurus, because the moon is exalted in Taurus, and the moon, when it moves into Cancer, it starts to make a conjunction to Jupiter. This is the final conjunction between the moon and Jupiter in Cancer, because Jupiter is really getting ready to move into Leo. 2 weeks' time, Jupiter moves into Leo. By the next Moon-Jupiter conjunction, Jupiter will have changed signs. So if you're enjoying the Moon-Jupiter conjunctions that happen every month, that have been happening every month for the last year, well, the next Moon-Jupiter conjunction is probably going to be in about 11 years' time. So make the most of it. But there isn't a Moon-Jupiter conjunction today. I mean, it's not for a couple of days, but perhaps you can start to feel the build-up, and sort of with Moon-Jupiter conjunction, indeed, just with moon in Cancer, I think, Taurus, you just might find that, certainly at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, you're feeling good about yourself, you're feeling good about your plans, and there's a very real possibility that things do work in a satisfactory way, and also you just feel quite nurtured by your environment. I mean, that's moon in Cancer. It is a very, very nurturing energy, and it gives us a contrast to the moon in Gemini. So we have a new moon with moon in Gemini, and moon in Gemini can be a bit all over the place. That is the nature of Gemini, but as it moves into Cancer, things start to really settle down. And so Taurus, don't worry about things. And talking about worries, if there are any worries, I think that's more at the beginning of the day. I think at the beginning of the day, you can perhaps see how things could go wrong. You can look at something that it seems difficult, dangerous. Your imagination could run away with you. You could imagine disastrous scenarios, and that might be a bit scary. But as the day unfolds, Taurus, I do think that you are going to feel better. You're going to feel sort of more comfortable, and I think it really is when the moon moves into Cancer that things really do start to improve. So when does the moon move into Cancer? Well, I think the moon moves into Cancer at 14 minutes past 1 in the afternoon, London time. So if you're in the Americas, really, the moon is in Cancer at the beginning of the day. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, okay, it might not be until this evening that you feel the benefits of the moon in Cancer, but it's happening. So so overall, Taurus, I just think the day really does improve hour by hour. And so if you start the day feeling a bit negative, even seriously negative, I don't think the day is going to end like that. Gemini, new moon in your sign. And this new moon may represent a new beginning. We've got, so I think this new moon is what, about 24 degrees 3 Gemini, and perhaps over the last I don't know, the last few days you felt that something was coming to an end, and you didn't feel particularly comfortable. And now with the new moon, I think that just things feel a lot better, and you can start to align yourself to the future. Start making plans for the future. Yeah, the past is there, and the past is perhaps trying to sort of keep hold of you, but I don't think you need to be stuck in one place. And so, you really can, use this new moon, and perhaps this new moon, is a bit of a culmination. I mean, with these new moons, they are quite late in the sign. I mean, they're not as late in the sign as they used to be, but 24 degrees 34 Gemini. You've had the sun moving through Gemini for the last 3 weeks or so, and it's coming to the end of Gemini. And the question might be, what have you learnt while the sun has been moving through your sign? Of course, if you're looking at these 12-sign forecasts from a perspective of the sun rather than the ascendant or the moon, then of course it is your birthday season, so that may make it particularly poignant. But it doesn't matter whether you're looking at it from a perspective of the sun, the moon, your ascendant. It still feels that something is coming together, and you're thinking about the last few weeks, and you're thinking, well, what did you achieve? What did you not achieve? And maybe you had plans that you weren't able to put into action, but now with this new moon, okay, you've kind of worked it out. You've kind of worked out the first phase. You've at the very least worked out the concepts, and now you have to put it all into practice. And the thing about this new moon is that it's in kind of two signs. Now, the reason it's in two signs is because it starts with it being in Gemini, the sun and moon in Gemini, but then the moon changes sign. If you look at the chart for set for New York, you see that at noon New York time today, June the 15th, the moon is at 2 degrees 24 Cancer. So the moon has sort of moved on, and this new moon, in the end, might be about you thinking, well, you've got these ideas are important to you, but how exactly are you going to achieve them? For example, is there a cost? Can you afford it? If you can't afford it, what are you going to do? Are you going to abandon your plans? Are you going to adjust your plans? Are you going to, perhaps do things on your own? Maybe think there are things which do not have to be bought. Maybe you've exaggerated the expenses. Maybe you can do things in a way that is more simple. So, yeah, you have a plan. The plan in its existing format is expensive, but perhaps the plan can be slimmed down so that it requires fewer resources. So that's certainly a way in which this can work, and I think it is entirely positive. And you should never forget that if something is right for you, really right for you, then you are always going to find a way of doing it. You're always going to find a way of expressing your individuality. And additionally, don't forget that Uranus is still moving through Gemini, your sign. Of course, Uranus will be moving through Gemini until 2032, and Uranus is still making a square to the north and the south node. And I think with Uranus making that square to the north and south node, in many respects, it's about you finding your own path. There are pressures for sure. There are pressures from authority figures. There are pressures from your family. You're not quite sure how to adjust to these pressures? Yeah, and there might well be financial pressures as well. But the answer to all of this, Gemini, is to just find your individual path, and I really think that you can. Now, as far as other people are concerned, I'm not saying it's going to be 100% easy. It is possible that you get a little bit confused. Not everything is straightforward. Perhaps you're still puzzling the fact that we've got the Sun making an opposition to true Black Moon Lilith. True Black Moon Lilith. It's at 2033 Sagittarius. The Sun is at 24 degrees Sagittarius. So that Sun opposition true Black Moon Lilith is it's across the main axis of your chart, an axis that is very often connected with other people, and certain people can be misleading, and you might see things in other people which are perhaps a projection of things which you don't fully recognize. So don't forget that. So if you see something in another person that you don't like the look of, that really seems really awful even, maybe at some level it represents something about you that you're not fully recognizing, that you're not fully taking responsibility for. So that's a bit complicated, but it's also likely that some people are just difficult to figure out, and don't take what people say at face value. People might say all sorts of things, and you might want to hear things from other people. You really want them to say things, particular things. You want them to agree with you. They want you to maybe confirm your biases, and maybe they'll be happy to confirm your biases, but does it actually mean anything? Because what someone says one day, well, they can say something completely different the next day. So do be a little bit careful with relationships, because not everyone can be trusted, and it's not it's not trust. Why can't they be trusted? They can't be trusted to tell you what you want to hear. They cannot be trusted to stick to their promises, and you shouldn't expect people to make promises. You shouldn't. You certainly shouldn't force people to make promises, because you're kind of setting everyone up for failure. So do be aware of other people's capacity to be unreliable. Everyone can be unreliable, and as a Gemini, you of all people should recognize how people can be unreliable, because every Gemini has got an unreliable streak, and I'm saying as someone who has got their Sun in Gemini. There's some things I can be pretty reliable about. I can be reliable in terms of putting out these videos every day, but there are other areas of my life where I can be a complete flake, where I can be totally unreliable, like where I can be disastrously unreliable. But but the less said about that, the better. Cancer. The moon is moving into Cancer. It moves into Cancer, I think, at 1:14 p.m. London time. So that means if you're in the Americas, the moon will move into Cancer, fairly early in the morning. Okay, maybe not super early in the morning, kind of depends where you are. But in the Americas, it's a day when the moon is moving through Cancer. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, okay, it may not happen until won't happen until this evening or even into tomorrow. If you're in the Middle East, moon will move into Cancer around 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon. It's happening, and having the moon in the moon in Cancer, just you're a Cancerian. It really works for you, and the moon is now in the same sign as Jupiter. And I would recommend, Cancer, that you do take advantage of that, because Jupiter has been in Cancer for a year. I mean, over a year. And of course, I'm talking about the Western zodiac. And at the end of this month, Jupiter leaves Cancer, goes into Leo. It will next be in Cancer, in 11 years' time, approximately. So this is the last Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer for 11 years. And, because the next time there's a Moon-Jupiter conjunction, it will be in Leo. So this Moon-Jupiter conjunction, well, it's going to be, tomorrow, the day after, whenever, the next couple of days. But you're probably slowly beginning to feel it because the Moon and Jupiter are now in the same sign, and the Moon and Jupiter in Cancer. It's very fortunate, and okay, maybe you've not been feeling particularly fortunate recently, but things are in place, and there are things that are working for you, and you need to look at things from many different angles. It's not just about money, for example, or career success. It perhaps is more about you and what you're achieving, perhaps on a creative level, or your perceptions of what you can do in the future. I mean, that might be how Jupiter in Cancer is working. Having a sense of just how great you are, and how good you are, how effective you can be if you're given the chance, if you can use your resources in the right way. And so this may say a lot about the new moon. Now, I know that you're thinking, hold on, this is a new moon in Gemini, it's not in Cancer, but it's kind of a new moon in Cancer in the end, because you have the moon moving into Cancer, moving out of Gemini into Cancer. So you have the new moon in Gemini, then the moon moves on into Cancer. Of course, in 6 days' time, it's the solstice. The sun is about to go into Cancer. So you could say, with both the sun and the moon about to move into Cancer, it is really a new beginning for you. And you perhaps have the opportunity to sort of come out of the shadows. Over the last couple of days, you maybe haven't felt that you were really able to be yourself. You were perhaps concerned what other people might say, and there were things to always things to be worried about. But now I would have said no, and it is a time to really be at the center of things, or at least start to move into the center of things. And also don't forget Mercury is in Cancer. Mercury is moving towards a conjunction of Jupiter. I mean, Mercury doesn't actually quite make the conjunction of Jupiter, I don't think, but right now Mercury and Jupiter are just 7 degrees apart, and Mercury does appear to be closing in on Jupiter. Just don't forget, the end of this month, Mercury does go retrograde. But really, that conjunction comes about via the moon. So even though Mercury doesn't reach Jupiter, the moon makes a conjunction to Mercury quite soon, in the next couple of days. Then the moon makes so moon will make a conjunction to Mercury, will make a conjunction to Jupiter. So yeah, what I'm saying is that really, things are happening, and this this really does look pretty good. Now the moon is making a square to Neptune, and this square to Neptune, is relevant. And it might say something about your ambitions, where you feel you should be going. And you might think, well, Moon square Neptune, that's kind of confusing, isn't it? I mean, Neptune is the planet of confusion, but it's also about you perceiving your way forward in a new way. That is about Neptune in Aries. In Neptune, you are thinking about your goals for the future, but you can't necessarily pin them down. It would be nice to be able to pin them down, but Neptune is in Aries and it's Neptune, and you need to be more subtle. It's not right in front of you, and your future, and as well as your ambitions, might unfold in quite sort of subtle ways. And so with the moon making a square to Neptune, it's perhaps about a slow realization that you need to follow a particular path, and this realization might take place through maybe a series of coincidences, or you might be able to tune into your imagination and kind of realize that there is a particular direction you should be going in, and it's perhaps not quite what you expect. So although it is possible with Moon square Neptune that you could be confused, you might feel, where is it all going? If you're going into work today, you might be thinking, well, what is it all about? It's difficult to make sense of anything. But if you can just be subtle, and if you can be open-minded, then you might realize that you're being kind of almost told to move in a particular direction, and it's an unusual process that has quite an unconscious and collective component. So do think about that, Cancer. And if you are feeling a bit confused today, in a strange way, that might be a good thing, because it might just indicate that in a way that you're quite close to understanding something, and this understanding is I don't think particularly intellectual. I think it's just going to be just an awareness that maybe one path is better than another. Leo, you right now have quite a lot to do. You feel you've got quite a lot to do, and there's a lot that you would like to accomplish. Why not? You feel that it's just not a time to just be hanging around doing nothing. There are things to be done, and it feels that you have the capacity to make things happen. Left to your own devices, but do you have the opportunity? And you might feel, for example, that you're being held back, perhaps. You're ready, but where is the opportunity? And so there might be a few sort of moments of frustration there, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think you need to let things develop in their own way. Because just because you can do a lot of things, you feel that you're able to do a lot of things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should just go ahead and do the first thing that comes to mind. I'm not convinced that would be a good idea. And if you do something without properly planning it, then, Leo, I think it's quite a good chance that it goes wrong. You just might find yourself going into an area that you just hadn't considered, and you perhaps hadn't considered the downside. You hadn't considered what exactly you were dealing with, and that would be unfortunate. So don't feel that you always need to be doing anything. It's really not like that. Now, at the same time, I think that there is a sense, Leo, that you do want to get things done, and you can be quite responsible. I mean, at the moment we've got Mars moving through Taurus. Mars is moving through the last decanate of Taurus, because signs you can divide a sign up into three parts. First 10 degrees, the middle 10 degrees, and then the last 10 degrees. And so Mars is currently at 20 degrees 32 Taurus, so the border is 20 degrees, so that means that Mars, last decanate of Taurus, the last decanate of Taurus is ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is, of course, quite a serious planet. It wants to get things done. It's quite methodical. And, this might mean, in terms of, how you pursue your ambitions, that you really can be methodical. Definitely you feel that there are things you want to do, and you want to do it in a particular way, and you don't want to be disturbed. And if you can act in such a way and not get disturbed, be very clear about what you're prepared to put up with, then I think it can be quite a solid day. Now we also have Venus moving through Leo. Okay, I've talked about Venus moving into Leo over the weekend, but it's new. It feels quite interesting, but it's another situation where you may not entirely be able to see it through. So with Venus moving into Leo, you certainly feel quite sociable, and I think that you can present yourself in a way that other people are going to respond very well to. But today and Monday and perhaps Tuesday into Tuesday as well, it feels that you can't quite see it through. I mean, you're having a good impact, but at the same time you have your worries. You're just not quite sure whether it's the right thing to do, and you're perhaps listening too hard to what other people are saying. And it could be because if you just listen to everything and you try to take on board other people and the complexities of their personalities and their experiences, well, there are things to worry about. Even if people are not directly talking about those worries, I think you can pick up on those worries, and you might end up thinking you're dealing with quite a hopeless situation, and so that might be the cost of social interaction. But I think it's important that you're not too self-conscious. You might almost think that another person is picking up on your concerns. They can almost read your mind, but they can't read your mind. So just because you're not comfortable communicating with someone doesn't mean that you should just stop. I think the other person is feeling fine. It just might be you just picking up on something that just still needs to be resolved. Now, we do have a new moon today. Okay, it might be late yesterday if you're in the Americas. So this new moon is in Gemini, and this is a new moon which is quite sociable. It appears to be sociable, and part of you might think that it is the beginning of something new in terms of how you're dealing with other people. But as I was saying just now, there is a sort of a growing uncertainty here. So you have a new moon, and the moment the new moon happens, you're kind of wondering, well, is this a full start? Is it really working? And you have your doubts, and you might start relating to someone, you might start getting on very well with another person, but then the moment it starts, someone feels that this isn't quite right. Maybe it's you who feels that things aren't quite right. Maybe it's the other person. Maybe someone just disappears. Maybe it's you that just disappears. And that might be of concern to you, but it's important not to be worried about it. It's just a shaky start to something new. And the I Ching has a hexagram. I think it's hexagram number 3, which is called difficulty at the beginning. And I think difficulty at the beginning, certainly in a social sense, does describe what you're experiencing. You can see how things could work socially, perhaps in terms of relationships in general. But short term, where is it all going? It doesn't seem to be working well, but you just need to see it through. And it's perhaps just teething difficulties, just things not fully working out. But I think that over the next couple of days, things will resolve, and perhaps they'll resolve when the moon goes into Leo. When the moon goes into Leo and makes a conjunction to Venus, so that that will be happening later in the week. Virgo, you are picking up on the new moon. I think it's quite an important new moon. This new moon takes place at the end of Gemini. It takes place, 24 Gemini. And so, Gemini is a mutable sign, and Virgo is a mutable sign. So, straight away you can feel it. And this new moon may be about things coming together, and it just might relate to your work. So if you're working or doing anything of a career or business nature, then the new moon is particularly important. It marks a beginning, but also a summing up. So perhaps this new moon, allows you to think about, what has been, going on, say, over the last few weeks. You can think hard about it, and it is all coming together. And the various threads which don't seem to be connected, and now you can see the connection, and you start to have a clearer idea about what it is that you want, how you want things to develop. But even if career and work are not relevant to you, I think the new moon is still important, because it's about how you are developing as a person. We are all in a state of development. We're all moving towards something else. I mean, I know we're supposed to think about the present. Sure. When we're in the present, we are completely happy. At least in theory, when we're not having to worry about the future and regret the past. So it's great to be in the present, but we do have to an extent. We do have, to an extent, acknowledge the future and start preparing for the future. And I think that is what you can do. Whatever your situation, and of course, the future. There's always a future to consider, particularly if you have a spiritual perspective. I mean, even if you don't. I mean, I don't know, if you're an atheist. Of course, if you're an atheist, you're not going to be watching this. But even with an atheist, even if you're an atheist, you're thinking about the future of life, the future of humanity, the future of the living world. But if you believe in an afterlife, it's going to be heaven, karma, the next incarnation. Not karma. I mean, sorry, we should be very careful using that word karma. But you're thinking about what happens next. Where you are going to as you move from one thing to another. And with this new moon, I mean, that is something that you are perhaps very aware of. And so the events of the last few weeks are, as I've just said, they are coming together. And this new moon does change. The moon, having made the conjunction to the sun, it moves on, and it moves into Cancer. And so if you're in the Americas, the moon will be in Cancer early this morning, pretty early this morning. If you're in Europe, certainly in London, 1:14 p.m, moon goes into Cancer. Later in the day, if you're, maybe really late in the evening if you're in Australia or New Zealand, or perhaps right at the beginning of tomorrow. But with that changeover from from Gemini to Cancer, you start to see things in a broader way. So perhaps you start the day seeing things in quite a narrow fashion. You just look at some sort of narrow window of opportunity where you think you should be moving, and then as the moon moves into Cancer, things start to widen out. It's not just about you, and it's not just about basic things like recognition, money, success. It's about where the whole thing is going. And as the moon moves into Cancer, you perhaps start to recognize this, and this starts to pick up on the fact that Jupiter's in Cancer. Jupiter has been in Cancer all year, and the moon is over the next couple of days is going to make a conjunction to Jupiter. And Jupiter is a fortunate planet, but it's also a planet which likes to see things in a broad way. It's not just about short-term ambition, it's about where the whole thing is going, where you are going. And I think that that's something that you need to be thinking about over the next few days. Jupiter is telling you not to just look at things from a very narrow way, but just get an idea about the flow of your life. As you're moving from one stage to the next, where is the next stage, and how do you want to prepare for it? And also think about your aspirations, and whether your aspirations are going to be fulfilled if you continue on the same path using the same methods. I mean, I think it's certainly optimistic, but I do also think that there's perhaps a little bit of work that needs to be done. Libra. Venus is making a quintile to Mars. Why do I start with a Venus quintile Mars? Well, quintiles are an aspect I do use. But I talk about quintiles when I do these forecasts of the 12 signs. I mean, one reason I talk about quintiles in these 12 sign forecasts is that, I'm doing these horoscopes every day, and I'm trying to work out how one day is distinct from another. And so a quintile is an aspect which doesn't last too long, but while it's exact, it may describe a day. And with Venus quintile Mars, Venus is your ruler, and you at some level are trying to find a connection with Mars. And you could see that Mars is just a planet which is about assertion. So you might feel, Libra, that you maybe haven't been always assertive enough. You'd like to be taken seriously. You'd like to be active, have a real impact, and you can't just do it by getting annoyed, acting spontaneously. No, because a quintile is not a spontaneous aspect. It's about what you are trying to deliberately create. So Libra, you think about the kind of effect you're trying to have, and then you kind of make it happen in a way that might be quite rules-based. You think about what steps you need to go through, and you do that. You create the plan, you create the right plan, and it does work. And this applies to relationships, across the board. You can certainly get someone's attention. It shouldn't be difficult, and that's another way of looking at this quintile. This quintile is about relationships. It's about forging new relationships, and it's about improving existing ones. And you do it very often through your own efforts. So if there's someone you want to get on with, for whatever reason, then your efforts can make all the difference. You have the basic desire to interact with another person, and then you work out, well, what exactly do you need to do? So I think that this Venus quintile Mars is a constructive aspect, but it's an aspect that kind of has to be worked on. I don't think it's just going to happen if you just let it kind of do its thing in its own way. It's not like that. It's not, I don't think, about sudden events. It's about you making a decision to actually do something. Now, this is happening, at the same time as a new moon. So we've got this new moon today, new moon in Gemini, and this new moon can be quite inspiring for you. It can make you aware of what is possible, what you might be able to do, and not in a necessarily in an ambition sense, at least to begin with. It's just you being aware of different possibilities and having quite a high level view of the world and the people around you. You don't have to immediately commit yourself with this new moon, but this new moon does develop, and it develops because it starts in Gemini, obviously 24 something Gemini. We have this new moon, but then the moon moves on, and the moon moves into Cancer. And don't forget, the sun is going to move into Cancer quite soon. 6 days' time? Time of the solstice. And so, with the moon moving into Cancer, I would regard this, Libra, as being really, quite positive. It is about realizing that perhaps a time has arrived when you have to make something happen, when you have to make it clear what you want and what you want to achieve. And this might also relate to your work if that's important to you. So if you're in a job, as the moon moves into Cancer, then you're starting to think about where this job is going and how you would like it to develop. And then you can actually take action to make it develop in the desired way. If you're looking for a job, then I think that the moon moving into Cancer, whether it's today or whether it's tomorrow, moon moving into Cancer is just going to be, I think, pretty helpful. And you can start to fine-tune what it is you want, what it is that you're good at, and so keep working away. And don't forget, the moon in Cancer is starting to move towards a conjunction to Jupiter, and that moon-Jupiter conjunction will be exact in a couple of days' time. And while you're at it, don't allow yourself to think too much about sort of questions of success and failure. You don't want to be asking yourself, what if it doesn't work? What if you come over badly? What if you don't get your words right? What if you're not good enough? What if things go wrong? Don't go down that road. I think you might be tempted to go down that road on sort of Monday, Tuesday, but don't. Just recognize that you're doing it right, and you don't think about failure. I mean, sure. I mean, there are no guarantees that anything works. But if you worry too much about failure, you might be creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that is something we absolutely do not want to happen. And so, I mean, overall, Libra, I think things are looking pretty good. Of course, you've got to be positive. You can't be sort of thinking about things that might go wrong, thinking that things are hopeless. That's not the right approach, I think. And so remembering, and particularly go back to what I was saying about that Venus quintile Mars. Venus quintile Mars is an aspect that doesn't work all by itself. You do have to make the effort to assert yourself and to create plans. But if you can do that, then Libra, I'm just confident that things really can work. Scorpio. Mars is moving into the last decanate of Taurus. So Mars has been moving through the central decanate of Taurus, ruled by the Moon, but now Mars is at 20, just past 20 degrees Taurus. So it's moving into the last decanate, and so that means that it's moving from a decanate ruled by the Moon to a decanate ruled by Saturn. And so with the Mars moving into a Saturn-ruled decanate, I think, Scorpio, that could make you, more serious, more down to earth, thinking about what needs to be done, and certainly not being self-deluded. Absolutely not. I think right now, Scorpio, you are quite realistic. You're in a position where you can see the world, for what it is, and that does give you an advantage. I mean, some people are, all over the place. There's a lot of wishful thinking flying around, but not for you, not in your department, not in your little part of the world. You're very aware of the restrictions being placed upon you. Those restrictions can come from society, it can come, from the country or the state in which you are working, functioning, and living. I think, Scorpio, you're going to be, very aware of the rules, the system in which you are having to operate, and so with that awareness, you can make sure that you do it right at a time when a lot of other people don't know what they're doing. And so your responsible and perhaps slightly legalistic approach could actually turn out to be quite useful. And okay, you can be useful to other people, certainly. And, if you're a Scorpio lawyer, then I think you can be particularly effective. Or if you are known for your knowledge of rules, codes, then I think that you can be useful to everyone, and I think that people can seek your advice. But even then, you're just able to do it right. Okay, it doesn't sound very interesting and inspiring, but the point is, you know what you need to do. And additionally, Scorpio, we've got a new moon, and this new moon might feel, to begin with, to be a little bit difficult. New moon in Gemini. With a new moon in Gemini, your first impulse might be to just see this as being something just difficult, something you don't even want to talk about. You kind of know something has started, but you kind of don't want to know how it ends. Is it anything good? And it's perhaps also, a culmination of what has been going on in the past over the last few weeks. It's all moving towards a point, and you're thinking, well, maybe this isn't so good. Maybe you might even feel a bit stuck at the time of a new moon, but it's quite natural to feel stuck at the time of a new moon. In fact, the exact time of a new moon, you could argue one shouldn't do anything. So this new moon, okay, it's 3:54 a.m. London time, late last night if you're in Americas. But I think the immediate phase of a new moon is when the sun and the moon are in the same sign, and the sun and the moon will be in the same sign until very early afternoon if you're in the UK. Much earlier if you're in the Americas. So while the sun and the moon are in the same are in the same sign, there's just a certain lack of objectivity, and you're just not quite sure where it's all going. You want to do something, you want to make something happen, but you can't. And I would recommend, Scorpio, that you just don't worry about it. There is a moment of perhaps uncertainty, and if you feel uncertain, you don't have to take any initiatives at all. You can just soak up the energy of the full moon and just wait for things to clarify. And I think they will clarify. And I think that when the moon moves into Cancer, Scorpio, a lot of your uncertainty will start to vanish. Like the like the morning dew. As the sun goes up, it will all evaporate, and things will become a lot clearer, and you'll be able to get a real perspective on things, and you'll start to see what is possible, and it will occur to you actually, Scorpio, that a lot of things are possible as the moon moves into Cancer, as the moon moves towards a conjunction of Jupiter, which it is doing over the next couple of days. Moon and Jupiter, both in the same sign, and so don't judge today, Scorpio, by first appearances. Let today develop, and as the day develops, as the moon moves into Cancer, I think that things will become easier, and also, like what I was saying, your understanding of rules, laws, regulations, customs, I think is really going to help you out. Now, in terms of relationships, there is a quintile between Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars are 72 degrees apart, and so that means the quintile is exact, and the quintile is about what you are able to create. And so there may be people that you want to be in touch with, that you want to get closer to, and at first sight it just might not seem easy. You're thinking, well, where do you start? But the quintile is saying, well, you work it out. You can work it out. It's not just about pure emotion or letting things develop spontaneously. You just work it out. You work it out. Who are you dealing with? What is this person like? What does this person appreciate? What does this person want to hear? How can you get their attention? And you just do it. And perhaps you utilize your knowledge of human nature. You ask yourself, what does this person feed on? There is a hexagram in I Ching, hexagram number 27, which is the corners of the mouth, and the corners of the mouth is about what someone eats, what nurtures someone. People are nurtured by different things. So with Venus quintile Mars, you work out what someone is nurtured by, and you provide it to them, and then they start to cooperate. You can get closer to them, and this might also apply to existing close relationship. If a close relationship has not necessarily been working to plan, it seems through your active steps you can definitely go a long way towards building bridges. But it might also say something about your work. If there's a relationship or a partnership that's important to you, maybe you've been working with another person, or you'd like to work with another person to achieve some particular goal, then I think, again, through your own efforts, you can make it happen. Sagittarius. New moon. Yes, new moon today, and this new moon is in Gemini. In other words, this new moon is in your opposite sign. So when we talk about a new moon in your opposite sign, inevitably we're talking about relationships. We might be talking about a new phase in a relationship. I mean, that's kind of a standard way of describing a new moon. New moon, new beginning. The moon is no longer waxing. Moon is no longer waning. It's waxing. It's starting to get bigger. Well, even though at the time of a new moon we can't see the moon at all, but behind the scenes after the new moon, the sun and moon are moving further and further apart, and in a few days' time we'll see that first sliver of moon, and so it's beginning, and so do think about your various relationships, regardless of their nature, and perhaps there's a new beginning, and it might not just be a new beginning; it might be a reset. So you could say that the sun has been in Gemini for some time, and perhaps a relationship or a series of relationships has been developing, and now it might be time for a change. Something has to be started again, and what's happened in the past, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a time for forgiving and forgetting, or it could be a time for accepting that you see someone for what they're really like. And so that could be how this new moon works. You may want to change. You may feel that one set of relationships or one particular relationship has gone as far as it can, and you just want to move on to something else. And as also a Sagittarius, it is a time when I think that you actually can be very persuasive. You are persuasive because you make the effort. You make the effort to listen. You make the effort to understand. You understand what makes people tick. You understand what people's preferences are, what people want to hear. You can do all of that, Sagittarius, right now. You can use your brain to really get a powerful insight into what other people are like. And so do not underestimate, Sagittarius, your ability to be persuasive. Sagittarius, I think right now you can be extremely persuasive if you want to be. There's something you want people to understand, and once you start talking about it with conviction and even passion, then I think in many cases, maybe even in most cases, they will come round to your point of view. Capricorn. Just because something is difficult doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Sometimes things are really hard work. You don't want to do it. You feel that there are going to be a lot of obstacles, but you just do it anyway, and you do it anyway with grit and dedication, and it does go your way. Surprisingly, might seem surprisingly, but I think it was obvious all along. And what's going on is that Mars is moving into the last decanate of Taurus. And so, why does that matter? Mars moving into the last decanate of Taurus. Well, the reason it matters is because, the decanates, there are 3 decanates in each sign. So that means there are, 36 decanates around the zodiac. And so this last decanate of Taurus is actually ruled by Saturn. So it's ruled by your ruler. And if you look at Saturn, you've got Saturn in Aries, and I know that Saturn in Aries perhaps isn't great, but Saturn is in a sign ruled by Mars. So you've got Saturn in Mars's sign. You've got Mars in Saturn's decanate. So there is a kind of a minor reception between between Mars and Saturn, and I think that helps quite a lot. I think it does just make things easier. Okay, it doesn't make things super easy, but it just gives you the dedication you need to be able to really see things through. And so you might do something and it starts off, with a great feeling of obligation, and you kind of don't really want to do it. It seems like, too much like hard work, but you do keep going. And at a certain stage, it starts working. Yeah. You start to see the results. And most importantly, you start to enjoy yourself. Okay, maybe enjoy is not quite the right word, but you at the very least get a satisfaction out of what you're doing. And if you feel that satisfaction, perhaps that includes the payoff, then you're able to proceed. And, additionally, we have a new moon in Gemini. And so, with this new moon in Gemini, okay, the new moon might have been last night if you're in the Americas, but, on Sunday night. But with this new moon in Gemini, yeah, that just gives you the persistence. You realize, this is a new beginning. You're going to get on with it. You're not going to worry too much about the effort. You know that enjoyment can't be guaranteed. It might seem just a bit boring, but you carry on. So through your efforts, you really do make good progress. And I don't think that you need much support or help. You do it on your own, and it works. And then this new moon, it starts in Gemini, but then the moon moves into Cancer. So the moon moves into your opposite sign, and of course Cancer is a sign in the Capricorn chart, which is often connected with relationships, and you perhaps become more aware of other people and their role in your life. I mean, you've already got Jupiter in Cancer and Mercury in Cancer, and so we've got the run-up to the Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, which takes place in a few days' time. And this might say something about the major people in your life, how you get on with them, and additionally how you're able to benefit from them. Benefit them in many different ways, maybe in a material way, in an emotional way. And so, do think about what other people mean to you. And, when you're thinking about Jupiter moving through Cancer, Jupiter has been in Cancer, in your opposite sign, for just over a year. And now we've got a build-up to a Moon-Jupiter conjunction. This Moon-Jupiter conjunction, it is the last Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer for 11 years. So over the next couple of days, it's possibly a good idea to really think about relationships and to think about particular relationships and ask yourself, how are they working out? Can you improve them? Or should you be looking for something else? And, as I said, quite frequently, I've said that, you should be actually gaining something from other people, and I think your expectations are quite high. And with the moon moving into Cancer, perhaps you have an opportunity to actually realize how these expectations can be met. And I think it's okay to have a lot of expectations. If someone is not coming out with the goods, is not being reasonable, is not appreciating you, maybe this will become clear as the moon moves through Cancer. So that's one way of looking at it. Also, the moon moving through Cancer may mean that for the first time you actually start to appreciate someone else's worth. Perhaps you hadn't fully understood them. You had maybe underestimated them, but now you perhaps understand what another person can do for you if they are given the chance. Aquarius. Well, Aquarius, we have a new moon today. Okay, it might have been last night if you're in the Americas. So this new moon, it's in Gemini. It's in an air sign, and so I think you are in a position to, enjoy this new moon. I mean, you could argue, Aquarius, that is what it's all about. You perhaps recognizing that something could be fun. Yeah, it could be fun. And perhaps you ask yourself, where is the fun? And, you perhaps tried lots of different things, and some things have turned out to be boring, but there are maybe other things which, might actually be very satisfying. So even if they're not fun, they can be satisfying, and you can perhaps recognize that they are just an integral part of your self-expression. So I do think that this new moon can be the moment where you realize, what is important to you, perhaps what activities are important to you, and you've got to really make them work. And as the new moon develops, this gives you the impetus to take something that may be intrinsically unstable. It's kind of a part of your life, but you could easily lose it. Why would you lose it? Well, it just could be a lack of practice, a lack of commitment. And perhaps when the moon moves into Cancer, as it will move into Cancer at some stage today, when the moon moves into Cancer, and over the next couple of days, you kind of recognize something needs to be done. That you've got to perhaps practice something, and if something is important to you, you've got to really give it your best shot, make it an integral part of your life. Don't take things for granted, because just because you're enjoying something right now doesn't mean that you're going to be able to enjoy it tomorrow. You might have just lost interest temporarily. You lose interest temporarily, then you realize, hold on, what happened to that? You try to get back into it and you've lost your chance. So I think, Aquarius, there are things in your life that you really need to see through. Because if you don't see it through, if you don't have the discipline to see it through, then that would be a shame. You might lose touch with something that could really have been an important part of your self-expression. And while all this is going on, we have got Venus moving into Leo, moving into your opposite sign. Well, okay, Venus moved into Leo over the weekend, but it's very much there. And with the new week, it might just occur to you that something has changed, and Venus in Leo might be representative of a relationship that could really work for you, although Venus is starting to make an opposition to Pluto. And I will be talking about this Venus opposition Pluto in more detail in a couple of days' time. But with this Venus opposition Pluto, that might describe some kind of relationship, a relationship which could work, but perhaps a relationship which also needs a bit of effort and needs a bit of self-honesty. And just because a relationship is perhaps a bit difficult because maybe you don't understand someone, maybe they don't understand you, just because there's a bit of turbulence, it doesn't mean to say that you should write it off. And even if you're talking about a new relationship, just because something is initially problematic doesn't mean that it will remain problematic. And this kind of reminds us of the hexagram in the I Ching. Hexagram, I think it's hexagram number 3, difficulty at the beginning. So if a relationship or a connection of another person appears to be difficult, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay that way. Pisces, new moon. That is perhaps really what matters today. We have a new moon in Gemini. We have a new moon in a mutable sign, and so with this new moon in Gemini, Pisces, this might sort of encourage you to think about what is important to you. Where is your grounding? How are you going to sort of root yourself? How are you going to give yourself some kind of permanence? That's always a question for Pisces. Pisces, it's a mutable sign. It's a sign connected with the sea, with the water, with the tides, and you can move from one place to another place, and you go with the flow. But there's still a need for some kind of centering, to kind of know where you are, to know where you belong. And that might be an important question that is developing, with this new moon. What is you? What is someone else? What is your territory? Where do you feel comfortable? Where do you feel uncomfortable? And the new moon brings these questions to the surface. And I think it's an entirely positive process. And okay, at first it might feel a little bit troubling, but as the new moon develops, as the moon moves through late Gemini and then moves into Cancer, just you feel that maybe something is being resolved. And then as the moon moves into Cancer, you're feeling, I think, more relaxed. You feel that maybe you do know who you are, where you're going, and what you feel good about. And the moon in Cancer, when the moon moves into Cancer, it's in the same sign as Jupiter, which is your ruler. Of course, I'm talking about the Western zodiac, not the Eastern zodiac. But in the Western zodiac, Moon and Jupiter will be in the same sign and moving towards a conjunction with one another. And that might give you not just a sense of belonging, but just a sense of what feels good, what you do enjoy, and you can be very genuine and sincere. And if you want to be genuine and sincere and sincere, it's about thinking about yourself. It's not about thinking about what other people want. So if you're true to yourself, in a way you're being true to the universe, and that's what the universe wants. So you do that, and it's not about pleasing anyone else. So it's just about having sincerity, and I think that that's something that you can develop not just over the course of a day, but over the next couple of days as the moon moves towards that conjunction with Jupiter. And now I want to switch to the I Ching. So I asked the question, what is Monday going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 46. 46, pushing upward. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward hexagram. It's generally, pretty positive. It's about making progress. It's okay. It's not about reaching our goal. It's not about reaching the destination, but it's about moving towards our destination. And we are moving forward, and we are getting there. And so, whatever you're doing today, that core activity, your number one priority, I think it is working out. Don't expect absolutely everything to work, but it's good enough. I mean, it's more than good enough. You're doing enough, I think, and you're doing you're doing what is necessary, and so that's looking good. And we have two moving lines. The second line moves, and also the fourth line moves. Now, the second line is really saying that you don't have to go over the top in terms of achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. You don't have to go over the top. You just have to really make a sincere gesture. You make that gesture, and it's acceptable. And this is particularly the case if we're talking about relationships, or maybe hierarchical relationships, whether it's whether it's romantic, business, or maybe you're dealing with someone you're trying to impress. If you're trying to impress someone, absolutely no need to go over the top. You do what you can. You stick to your own. You stick to whatever your resources are. You're not being asked to, really destroy yourself in order to make a good impression. Because you're just being sincere, and sincerity. Because the I Ching is talking about offerings here, whatever that offering is, it's talking about, something small is good enough, and it's acceptable. And you certainly don't have to go above and beyond the call of duty or anything like that. And, then, the fourth line moves, and the fourth line, again, you're getting close. You're getting actually quite close to achieving your goal, whatever that goal might be. Now, I'm not saying you're going to actually achieve the goal, but you're certainly making really good progress here. Now, as we have got some moving lines, that means we do move to a second hexagram, and the hexagram we move to is hexagram number 62, which is preponderance of the small. Okay, not a dramatic hexagram. It's which is good. We don't have to create spectacular effects. We focus on something small. We're looking for small gains. This is pushing upwards. We're not trying to build Rome today on Monday. Rome was not built in a day. It doesn't have to be built in a day. And so we use our resources, we don't take things too far, and we are satisfied with small gains. And so that, as far as I can see, suggests it should be it should be a good day. We mustn't fly too high. Preponderance of the small. If a bird flies too high, it gets noticed by hunters. It makes itself vulnerable. We don't have to do that. We just have to be, satisfied with small gains, and that is enough. So that's it with this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would of course be very grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, super grateful if you were to subscribe. If you want to buy me a coffee, there's a link in the description, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.